So the first thing that we will be discussing is describe the structure and explain the function of the male and female human reproductive system. So first, for the male reproductive system, this consists of two major parts: the testes, which produces the sperm, and the penis. The penis and urethra are both part of the male urinary and reproductive system. The testes are carried by an external pouch called scrotum, and scrotum is normally slightly cooler than the body temperature since it facilitates sperm production. So to move on, we have the female reproductive system. The external parts of the reproductive system of the female is the clitoris, labia minora, labia majora, and Bartholin's glands. The major internal organ of the female reproductive system includes the vagina and the uterus, which serves as receptacle for semen. The ovaries also, which is responsible for the production of the ovas. The vagina is attached to the uterus through the cervix, while the fallopian tubes connects the uterus to the ovaries. In response to hormonal changes, one ovum or egg, or many in the case of multiple births, is sent down the fallopian tube during ovulation. If not fertilized, it is eliminated by menstruation. So the next one is differentiate between asexual production and sexual reproduction, external and internal fertilization, and indirect and direct development. So first, for the two types of reproduction. For asexual reproduction, it is reproducing without the involvement of two sexes or genders. And for sexual reproduction, it involves the fusion of special cells called gametes, one from the male source and one from the female source. Unlike sexual reproduction, which requires the genetic input of two parent organisms in order to reproduce, asexual reproduction is when a single organism reproduces without the genetic input of another. And because of this, a single individual organism is able to reproduce a closely exact copy of itself. So moving on, we have the two types of fertilization. So fertilization is the union of sperm and egg nucleus in order to produce diploid cell or zygote, and it will later be developed into the young ones of their generation. The first one is internal fertilization. So from the word itself, it is when the syngamy, otherwise known as the union of the male and female gamete, it occurs internally inside the female's body. And in contrast, the external fertilization is when the syngamy is outside the female body, that is in outer environment, especially in water bodies. So the next is the two types of development. So the first is direct development. So direct development is a widespread alternative reproductive mode in living amphibians that is characterized by evolutionary laws of the free-living aquatic larval stage. Courtship, mating, and oviposition occur on land, and the terrestrial egg hatches as a fully developed miniature adult. With indirect development, an animal's birth form is very different from the adult form. The embryo hatches the egg in a larval form. The larva undergoes a drastic metamorphosis in order to achieve its adult stage. Then animals that undergo indirect development lay numerous eggs. Because the eggs are small, they have relatively little yolk, and due to the small amount of yolk, the larva develops and hatches rapidly. Next one is to describe the events associated with human sperm and egg production and explain how hormones influence them. So the events associated with egg production are oogenesis, in which the primary egg cell becomes a mature ovum and will further develop when fertilized. The ovarian cycle, when the maturation of follicle and egg happens, influenced by follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. The menstruation cycle, which prepares the uterus for the fertilized egg, and the hormones, estrogen and progesterone, involved in maintaining the uterus lining. While for the human sperm, there is a spermatogenesis, which is the production and maturation of sperm cells, also influenced by follicle stimulating hormone, which triggers the Sertoli cells to release androgen binding protein or ABP, and luteinizing hormone that triggers Leydig cells to release testosterone. Then the testosterone binds with the ABP to basically produce the sperm, and the spermiogenesis, which is the final stage for spermatogenesis. The fourth question is, describe the events in human fertilization until childbirth, particularly the appearance of sex differences and what triggers them. So, fertilization is the process in which haploid gametes fuse to form diploid cell called the zygote. And to ensure that each zygote has the correct number of chromosomes, only one sperm can fuse with one egg. So for the stages of human development, the first stage is called the zygotic stage. And in this stage, the zygote is formed when the male gamete, sperm, and the female gamete, otherwise known as egg, fuse. For the second stage, it is called blastocyst stage. And in this stage, the single-celled zygote begins to divide into a solid ball of cell, and it becomes a hollow ball of cells called a blastocyst, and attaching to the lining of the mother's uterus. So the third stage is called the embryonic stage, and the major internal organs and external organs begin to emerge in this stage, forming an embryo. So the brain, the heart, the spinal cord are now visible, and arms and legs start to develop. For the fourth stage, it's called fetal stage, and once the formed features of the embryo begin to grow and develop, the organism is considered a fetus, and differentiation and specialization of structures happen during this time. The sex differences, a chromosome from the sperm cell, either X or Y, fuses with the X chromosome in the egg cell. So the fifth question is, explain how contraceptives prevent pregnancy. So the birth control pills work by stopping the sperm from joining an egg, or otherwise known as fertilization. The hormones of the pill also prevents ovulation. No ovulation means that there's no egg hanging around for sperm to fertilize. In short, no pregnancy can happen. And also, the pill's hormones thickens the mucus on the cervix. So the last and final question is, give examples of sexually transmitted infections. So first, obviously we have HIV and AIDS, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, PID, HPV, HSV1, and HSV2.